Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Finance regular meeting for Monday, August 19th, 2019 order. First item on the agenda is public forum. Anybody wishing to address the board in public forum? Hearing none. Moving on to number 2, approve minutes of the regular meeting minutes of July 22nd, 2019.
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Sure. Second.
And any corrections, comments? I did not see any on my end. Anybody?
Just wondering whether they had, on 8.1, whether the Facilities Task Force has any date in mind for submitting recommendations. I didn't see that in the minutes, and I wondered.
I believe they're going to be scheduling public presentations sometime in September.
Okay.
But those dates, have those dates been set yet?
No, they're working on it.
They're working on them now? Okay. Great, thanks.
Call the minutes?
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Nay,
Okay, thank you. Item number 3, correspondence, standing building committee minutes. I did go through them, and I noticed that we were supposed to possibly have a representative tonight.
Yes.
But,
I think I can answer most of the question.
okay, Ted. Actually, what's interesting is that you're reporting tonight. And the only thing that I came up with is number 6, which is the action update on the performance contracting. Paraphrasing here, there's still a substantial amount of performance contracting work to be completed by the end of this month. Some issues arose at Cox School, and there was some discussion, or going to be some discussion, on the agreement on the substantial completion date. Do you have any updates or status reports on the performance contracting that you know of?
Yes, they've made a lot of progress this month, but it now appears that it'll be the end of the month before they are substantially complete. They still have a lot of work to do. And I think that date is not fixed yet.
Date being the end of this month, or the end of August?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a meeting, or is the standing building committee just going to address this at their next meeting as far as the status, and or are they going to have a discussion then, or is there any kind of special meetings that are going to be planned? It actually does say a meeting has been scheduled tomorrow to review the schedule. That would have been on July 24th.
Right. So there have been several meetings. They're working away at it. Frankly, they're having to redo quite a bit of work that was poorly done the first time, and which is very disappointing. But I think the team they have working on it now is capable. I think they have enough people working on it, but I'm not sure. I mean, we're just, the standing building committee is not comfortable that we know when it's going to be done. I think it will get done, but well, for a while there we weren't so sure.
Yeah.
But they reorganized their team and they upgraded it, and we're making progress, but there's still a lot of work.
Does the work have to do with the subs that are working on the project, or is it the actual consultants that are?
That I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know.
I didn't know if it was a reflection of the subs that were being hired to do the actual work, or if it was our actual consultant and oversight. Okay. So there'll be more reporting back on this.
So,
Okay, go ahead.
just to clarify, your allusion to subpar work that they had done, am I correct in assuming that it's their money to refurbish that? Does that cost the town extra money, or did they take care of all that?
No, this is their hook. This is
Okay.
their dime. Oh, yeah, no, they've been very forthright about that. The question is going to be, when is substantial completion, and when do we start this period that we measure that we're supposed to get the energy savings? Because we're not getting the energy savings right now.
Right. There's got to be a threshold that we finally pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, there's supposed to be, and that's an issue that is not resolved.
Yeah, that was my next question is, and I know we've talked about it ad nauseum, but when they do that review, it won't be until that review is complete that we will be able to determine what the dollar savings basically were to the town at that time. And that's going to be predicated on a number of assumptions that are made during that review period, if I'm not mistaken. Is that fair?
Yes, I think that's right, but I think the issue is gonna be, I mean, there are several issues here, and I really, I don't think should go into them, because, you know,
Okay.
this is something that is in the hands of the attorneys.
On that note, though,
Go ahead,
I'm
John.
curious, will the late construction or any of this rework have any impact on the lease payments or them
Well,
meeting their
that's one of the
obligations?
issues that it's gonna have to be discussed. I mean, we haven't, I mean, frankly, we wanna get to the make it work stage first, and then we're gonna get into the money stage. But we will get into the money stage, because we started paying for the lease. When did we make that payment?
January, I think.
Yeah, in January, and we're not getting the lease, we're not getting the energy savings yet. So,
Well, they're on the hook for this.
Right, that's
If
my
we're not-
understanding
if
too.
we're
right?
not
They're-
realizing the
They're on the
savings.
hook if we don't realize the
That's right.
savings
That's
to
right.
make the lease payments for us.
It'd be nice
that's
to
our
realize it
position.
sooner than later. So Ted, I know you're somewhat speaking on standing building committee minutes, and I know you attend just about all the meetings. So
I was
appreciate
there.
you trying to answer the questions. That being said, I think we'll get through this month and then see how the September meeting turns out
Yeah.
for the standing building. But thanks for trying to answer the questions anyway. Is there anything else on standing building?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead.
On item 5, that there was a reference to the cost estimate of $150,000 for the Adams School irrigation system.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a reference to that some funding was going to come from the Little League program.
That's correct.
What percentage is that?
I don't have the exact numbers.
Doesn't state it.
That is not a Board of Ed project, that is a Park and Recs project.
Does our
That's a
do
strictly
our town
voluntary-
representatives know what that percentage is by chance?
It is, it's a $5,000 contribution.
Okay.
That would be next year's budget, I assume.
It's
This year's,
current.
I mean,
2020, yes.
This year's the one
it's
that we're in.
this money has not already been approved. This money doesn't exist.
Correct. No, it is. It's in the 2020 budget.
It is.
Yes.
I didn't see that one. Shame on me.
Yeah, under-
I have a hard time believing
100%
that
capital.
this comment, where is it? Something to the effect that it's cheaper to irrigate than to repair fields.
Near the end. That was near the end.
I'd like to know how much we actually spent repairing fields, and irrigation's going to cost money every year to start it up and shut it down, and the water bill. And to me, I guess it's already approved, so it doesn't make any sense. I was opposed to the upper field at Cox, and I would say that this isn't something that's necessary at this time either. But if it's already
It's in
the
the
train
capital-
left the station, then
It's in the
nothing I
town's
can do.
capital budget.
So item 12 sort of caught my attention. The Board of Education is looking at a proposal for a design of office space in the old science wing of the high school.
Yes,
And that would be a possible project that would come up for consideration in this next budget cycle?
That's more in the next budget cycle or in a special referendum. More than likely, it's going to be next budget cycle.
And then what would happen to the other office space? I'm not sure where it is. I think there's a small spot on the green,
It's a small spot.
and there's something adjacent to the high school.
Yeah, there's Central, yeah, central office north.
There are 3 or 4 administrative facilities that would be consolidated into one.
So then those other facilities would be empty?
They would be used for other purposes, I would expect. I mean,
That's what I was curious.
We would turn Lathrop House, which is the superintendent's office with the assistant superintendent and several other people on the leadership team. We would turn that facility, which is next to the library, back to the town. The other facilities, the central office north is a freestanding facility which is east of the high school, and I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I think that either it's going to be used in an operational sense for storing equipment and stuff like that, but I don't think the plans have been fully developed. And then there's room at Lee, and where else?
Just Lee.
Yeah, there's-
Technology is down in Lee, but they're in the old portables that are at Lee. Technology would be moved out of there. Most of central office north would be used for storage and for the maintenance facilities people to operate out of. They'd still store their equipment there. They'd be able to keep some equipment inside the building. Because the actual side of that building used to be a garage. So there'd been talk about whether they could use that again as a garage, but that's still wants to be decided.
And then the science wing now, is it being used kind of as an exercise facility?
The
Is that
ground
right?
floor is being used as an exercise facility, which is a town facility. And the upper floor, which is not improved, there's no HVAC or anything else up in the upper floor, is just being used as a kind of an attic,
Okay.
being used as raw storage kind of stuff.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
As Mr. Sands has indicated, the Board of Ed would turn back the current Board of Ed offices on Park Street back to the town. That is part of the evaluation Facilities Task Force that is going through, what it can be used for, what it can't be used for. That's a pretty valuable piece of real estate, which theoretically we could put on the market and capture a significant return. There is a significant challenge with that, however. Ken knows it. And that is that when we did the library expansion, we expanded onto that lot. There are 2 separate lots, the 2 separate addresses over there, 55 and 59 Park, I think it was, or 55 and 57. And the septic system for Lathrop House is currently served by the library septic system. So there are some challenges there that creative attorneys could probably figure out how to do something, but there was also no off-street parking. So there are some challenges relative to that building. And there's the final consideration that that building's a little long in the tooth, shall we say, and is probably in need of some significant investment if it were to be turned back into a residence or commercial business offices. It doesn't mean that couldn't be done, so we are exploring the options through the Facilities Task Force.
And to get a solid budget to be able to go forward. These drawings are moving forward to get a better idea of what the construction costs would be.
Yes. And one thing that I think Dr. Freeman will tell you, in his 8 years here, I think it is now, 8 years here, he's never had his team together, and that's a challenge. His whole administrative team has never been co-located, and he thinks there's some great opportunities by consolidating and bringing his team under one roof in one area. So,
Interesting point. The proposal, that would also come up as something that we would consider for next year's budget?
if it involved funding, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
For the 48,000?
Well, if I remember correctly, that 49.9 is probably to the limit before it goes to bid, goes out public. It's gotta be under 50, so
Yep.
they're right to the cusp.
Pretty
of it.
close, huh?
Which is probably, a fair amount. So, okay. Anything else on building committee?
Item 9, on the HVAC work on the Baldwin School, is that going to compromise the start of the school year at Baldwin?
No.
No, doesn't look good.
They're saying they may not have the cooling in order, but they have.
There'll be
they have
airflow, but no
some kind of
cooling.
airflow, so there's no problem.
That's right. There's fresh air and there's airflow. There will be cooling in some rooms, but not in most of the classrooms.
And no disruption
I'm sorry?
no disruption in the instructional area.
We are not expecting it, no.
Just might be a little bit more warm than usual,
Discomfort.
but that's it. They're used to
It's a
it.
throwback.
This is an advantage once they get it, so. Okay. Anything else on standing building committee?
I have a question. It sort of
Sure.
combines warrants in this, but since Mr. Sands is here, there was a thing on abatement over at Baldwin, I believe. Was that planned work going on in the summer at Baldwin was the PCB abatement continuing going on or something?
Yes, it was planned work. There was testing that was done prior to the work being done. It was removing carpeting and flooring. And from what I was told, that the testing did not go down far enough. So where they said that there was no asbestos and we didn't need to abate anything, when they started to actually remove the materials from the floor, they found that there was asbestos, so we had to do the abatement. But it was a planned project.
Okay, yeah, so it had nothing to do with the window project. This was
No, no, no.
This
No,
was
this
carpet
was-
and they
this
found
was
asbestos and
flooring,
that was,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's all taken care of, that's all ready to go?
Okay, anything else before we move on to pension? Okay, pension committee minutes from July 17th. Anybody have anything?
So I guess I just ask a question about the police still have two points that they need to settle. Do we know what they are?
No, they're going to approve on this Wednesday, they're going to approve the restatement. Basically what they did is they went back over past, 4 or 5 contracts. And this is a process that typically takes place after contracts are renewed to adjust the pension document itself to reflect any changes. That had not been done over the last, I believe it was 4 contracts. So this restatement was prepared by Milliman, reviewed by outside counsel Mike Dorney and his team, and they are now prepared to go. There was some, let us say, confusion over who had the authority to review or to change it. We worked the details out with the police union, and there were clarifications they asked for, which we got from Milliman and from attorney offices. And as it has been prepared for us, it will be approved, it should be approved by the pension committee on Wednesday.
All items have been resolved.
Everything's
Yes.
Something else that caught my eye is Mr. Hartman asked if our medical surplus funds were managed. And I think the answer was that they're not professionally managed. But I guess the question is, can we invest that money and make interest in it, or are there some regulations?
We're earning interest. Those are part of the STIF funds. Those are part of our overall funds.
Oh, those are part of it.
Correct. I think
Okay,
his question was.
That was my question, to just
yeah.
know if they were invested.
I think Mr. Hartman's question was concerning managed in the way that the pension is
Right,
managed.
professionally managed.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Okay, we
But
do
they
own
are
interest.
part of our overall investment strategy, yes.
Okay, that's fantastic. I was wondering if it was like a missing piece that we weren't
No.
earning interest on. Okay.
The minutes also reflected something Mary Jane had mentioned about Board of Ed doing what they can to increase their recommended contribution. Has there been any movement on that?
The Board of Ed at the end of the year did make, Linda can probably speak to it, clearer than I can.
Which brought our total contribution for the year to what, 900 or something?
It was just shy of the actuarially recommended contribution, just shy.
Yeah, but not by much. I mean, we came real close.
reflective of the effort that the Board of Ed was making to reach that ADC, and that's shown in the additional appropriation that they made after the end of the year.
And it was a good month, in June. It was a good month, from the report. Okay. Item number, let's see, 4. Review and accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education. So we got a couple fiscal years to discuss. And Ted Sands, you're the lucky presenter tonight to do that.
It counts as one, but I get 2 years, yeah. Anyway, all right.
Wearing 2 hats.
So let's talk first about the month of July as it related to fiscal year 2018-19. The expenditures for the month of July for that fiscal year were $596,357.52. At the end of July, we were 99.97% of budget compared to 99.98% in the prior year. The warrants for the month were $702,673.15. And we ended the year with a very small surplus, approximately $15,000, which we are, I believe, turning back to the Board of Finance to be dealt with. And we're, frankly, given all the restraint we had to impose on the team this year to get to that, we were lucky to have any surplus. I mean, it was tough. But we've closed out that year. So does anybody have any questions with respect to the end of the 18-19 fiscal year?
I had a comment on just on where we were with the special education bids. We were getting 5 bids in,
Yes.
and they were to be measured against the main provider.
Well, no, here's the way it works. We put the bids out, we put the special ed runs out for bid,
You're talking about the buses.
the buses.
I just want
yes.
to make sure it's
Yeah,
clear.
well, some of them aren't
Transportation.
big buses, they're little
Talking about
buses. Yes.
special education, transportation. Okay.
And, but the contract we have with our main bus company, Specialty, provides, as did the previous contract, that they have the right to match any of those bids if that's convenient for them. And so the bidders know that. And so we awarded the low bidders subject to Specialty deciding which of those they're going to take. Did we find out what Specialty wanted to do?
Yeah, especially only decided to take 2 runs that were really in-district runs. They were just special transportation arrangements. So they only decided to take those 2, and everything else is going to one of the other bidders.
But Specialty was matching the low bid that was.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
They have
have.
they have the opportunity to.
They have the option.
But only on 2, they did it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they could have done others, but they chose not to go outside of district.
Okay. just quick question on the encumbrances, 285, it's showing left on the encumbrances, or those in the process of getting canceled, or, I mean, if there's only 15,000 left in the budget, there's not too much that can be
No,
spent in that, so I'm assuming that they're being vetted out in terms of what,
a lot of them will be paid probably within the next month or so. Unfortunately, we have to wait till the teachers come back to go through the orders and confirm receipt of their supplies. And then they start sending us the proofs of
Mhm.
receipt. So usually in September, we end up canceling a lot of those. But I pushed very hard on canceling those, making sure that they were only valid ones that were going to stay open, get that number down as low, and to try and
right?
be able to return some money back.
I forgot, do we see fiscal year 18 and 19 again next month, or is this the last time we see it?
This is the last time you'll
This
see
is
it.
it, right?
This is it.
I won't be making any changes to this.
Right.
Um,
I couldn't remember if it's just a 1 month or.
We have it on some occasions done in
Yeah.
August, done a report the following month if there was activity in August, but nothing has
But
changed.
nothing, basically
has
nothing's
changed
gonna
with
change.
this. No.
It's just the encumbrances are gonna either get paid or canceled.
Chairman?
Yes.
Normally, the only adjustments that are made are audit adjustments that you would see through the
Do
financials.
the financial, okay. All right, thank you. Anything else on the financials, warrants for fiscal year 18 and 19? We're just gonna stick on that right now. Is there anything else?
In tuition, we transferred $540,000 over to that account, didn't
Yes.
we? And I think the tuition budget for the year was 2.8 million, that was the original one. Where are we on the new budget year? I didn't see that. Do we know?
I don't have a
Did we
projection.
increase that amount?
Oh,
Yeah,
we
we
did
did.
increase
Oh,
it.
yeah, we-
Yes,
oh,
yes,
yeah.
By
absolutely.
$600,000.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yes.
we're over 3 million on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think we're at like 3.3. I mean, it's literally what we had last year, revised. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry.
No,
The appropriation was
it's
2.2.
And
That
the
was
budget for 1920 is 2.9.
2.9, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember which number it was that we had. It's the original 2.2 number that we added, the 600,
Yeah.
650, I think it was. Yeah, we went up.
I'm
Quite a bit.
hoping by your next meeting to have a preliminary tuition report with the counts and,
Good.
but
It's a moving target right now.
it's very, yeah.
Yeah.
we're
Until
still working out
until
some-
school starts,
I wasn't
we're
gonna, yeah, I
not.
wasn't expecting anything.
Yeah.
else.
I'm hoping to have one, but we'll,
Okay,
if nothing else, it'll be very preliminary.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so let's move on to the fiscal
Do we want-
year 2019
I was
to
thinking, do
2020.
we just want to do the, just approve the?
Oh,
or
okay,
accept
let's
the
approve,
amount?
yes,
Yeah, let's
let's
get fiscal
do
year 18,
18,
so we don't get
19,
confused.
okay.
Yep, sure, sure, go ahead.
On the benefits lines, just to clarify for my purposes, you transferred $517,000 out of medical, which still leaves you with an available balance of $266, which seems to be offset by the $250,000 overspend in pension. Did you in fact move some of that money, should there be an entry that shows an approved transfer to that line item?
The way the Board of Education always has done this is that as long as the bottom line is not over budget,
Right.
that I could have done the transfer between the two medical and the pension lines.
Okay,
The way the Board of Ed approved it was just the transfer out of medical.
okay. So the 267,000, that's the differential between what you're short in the pension account and what you transferred out of medical, that's the contribution that you made to the health benefits? To the pension, rather?
Yes.
The one-time payment to the pension?
The $250,000 payment, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, I would like to entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures of the Board of Education for the month of July 2019 for fiscal year 18-19 in the amount of $596,357.52.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? Okay, Ted.
All right.
Fiscal year 19-20, it's all yours.
Good.
Good.
So the expenditures in July for the current fiscal year were $2,883,419.10, which was 7.2% of the budget as compared to 4.48% in the prior year. And the warrants for the month were $1,505,233.80. I would comment that we had a significant discussion at the Operations and Finance Committee meeting of the Board of Ed about these two percentages of budget. And our conclusion is that this is primarily because we're paying things earlier this year, dues and annual subscriptions and things like that. And we don't see that this is a particular indication that we're going to be off track.
It was interesting to note that all of the categories were higher except for tuition. And I'm assuming or guessing that's because of the increased budget, so the percentage is going to be lower that were expended.
Well, and also the tuition.
And it hasn't really kicked in yet, but still.
Frankly, the tuition, a lot of the schools are just slow in billing us.
True. That is true. Okay. So, warrants, minutes.
I had a question on warrants.
Go ahead.
Frontline Technologies Group, what is it, was that a lease?
I'm sorry?
No, Frontline Technologies.
Page 2,
Yes, okay.
Frontline Technologies Group, $28,000.
So Frontline Technologies Group does several different software packages. This one is for IEP Direct, which is the special education software to do the documentation for a student's
Educational plan.
educational plan. I couldn't,
Right.
the,
I-
I couldn't figure out what the I part was stood for.
Everyone says IEP, but you forget what it stands for.
Individualized, thank you.
Individual
I drew a
education.
blank for a minute there, sorry. But we get other software from Frontline, so you will see a couple other ones in the coming months. We also do their attendance package that'll come through as ASAP. We also use the Applitrax, which is the application software that we use, and it's all owned by this company, Frontline.
I've asked this question, I think, about 2 years ago, and I still don't understand it. The Grove School, the tuitions are always the same, except there's usually one tuition, sometimes two, that stand out. It's maybe 30% greater than the average tuition. What accounts for that? Like you have a series here on page 2 of four tuition fees for the month of July, and 3 of them are $8,200 and one is over $12,000.
Additional services for one student. And
Several of these schools have kind of levels of service that we request, and some students need more service
Sure.
than others. I mean,
Sure.
that's the best way to put it.
All right, anything else on the financials? Warrants? Meeting minutes? Just scanning mine right now to see if I have anything. Nope. Anything else?
Maybe just electricity? Just curious why 4% this year but 0? Is that just because we're missing the amount from last year?
Maybe we
Probably
didn't
just
have a
hadn't been
bill at
billed
this
yet.
time last year.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
didn't have a bill this
I
early?
mean, you know,
It's-
Eversource is not real regular on this stuff.
Okay, yeah, that would explain it.
Yeah, there've been some bills that I've been waiting for, even to close out the end of the year.
Okay.
Which, if you look at last year's report, I believe there's an encumbrance under electricity because there were invoices that I had not received yet. And you don't normally see encumbrances under electricity. But it was because I was anticipating invoices and I didn't get them by the time I closed out the year.
Okay.
Okay. Anything further? Wow. Let's go a little early today. All right, so for fiscal year 1920, do I hear a motion to accept the report of expenditures of the Board of Education for the month of July 2019, fiscal year 1920, in the amount of $2,883,419.10? I hear a motion.
Sue, some,
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions or recusals? Okay. Thank you, as always. Item number 5, review and approve expenditures for town government. And we have 2 fiscal years as well to go over. So, Mary Jane.
Hello. Oops.
So, fiscal year 18-19.
So I just want to be sure that you all realize that these are all unaudited numbers for both the revenues and the expenditures. Clearly, there may be adjustments that are made between now and the financial statements are completed, but this is the best information we have as of right now. On the revenue side, as I've reported, we do have a surplus. We are estimating a $1.8 million surplus on the revenue side, made up mostly of interest income, tax collection, fire department, and additional ECS, all items that we've pretty much discussed month over month as we've moved forward, anticipating this over time. So unless you have any particular questions. So if we look at the expenses, similar story. We've talked about most of these. I'm not sure if you want to speak to the overages right now, or we do have all the overages to speak to as far as the transfers. So I will leave that up to you, whether or not what you'd like to do. I will note, as the Board of Ed just spoke, that their final budget will show closer to a $15,000 surplus. The numbers we have right now show $112,000, almost $113,000 surplus. Linda and my staff have been working on that change to make sure that we get all of that updated by the time our numbers are audited, but their numbers are correct at 15. They're just not reflective as postings to our end. Sorry. So if you want to wait till we talk about the transfers, all the overages are discussed at that time.
Basically a $1.3 million net surplus that'll go into fund reserves.
Correct.
I did something crossed my mind and blanked out on it. Yeah, we have a line item here for the year-end transfers, so we'll just take care of it then.
Correct. Like I said, we're going to, all of those are, you
Yeah.
can discuss them now, or then they're all there in both places.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of.
Sure, we can do
transfers.
them as when we talk about the
We
transfers.
could do it, we'll do it separately.
Okay.
So we could just focus on it.
Yeah, unless there's any other questions other than the overages.
No, and we're really, I saw the note, just to make sure I was right, in asking for the the motion that we're approving the 193 number, right?
The difference,
Yeah, it's
correct,
just the
because
difference.
you've already approved the
Right.
majority of it at the last
Right.
meeting.
So-
We're just doing the difference this year.
Thank you for putting a box around it.
It helps
Make
all
it-
of us. It helps all of us.
Make it easy to find.
I have a question. I
Sure, go ahead.
apologize too, because I think you've explained it a couple times.
It's okay.
But why, again, was the debt, interest, and principal higher than we expected?
Because through the budget process, we anticipate using some of our bond premiums that we receive. So we actually budget that reduction, and then at the end of the year, we move that from fund balance. The money's already in fund balance. So if you look at the detail of the interest, the debt interest, you'll see that negative number. We anticipate that. It reduces the amount that we have to tax the people for because we have the money saved on the fund balance.
Good.
Capital expenditures, could you comment on the overages in capital?
Certainly, I'm going to have to move to my...
Information systems?
Yeah, just going to have to move to my year-end transfer report. We have 5 specific items that have brought that over. The first 2 are the a new engineering vehicle and a new assessor vehicle. Those are both being funded from overages or surpluses in the engineering and assessor line. I think I've spoken about the engineering vehicle in the past. So because there were retirements in both of those departments that allowed us to have some surplus, instead of budgeting them in the next year, we allowed them to use that surplus to purchase these 2 capital items in the current year. So it's really just a transfer from those operating lines into the capital. That accounts for about $45,000. Also through the energy performance contract, we had a line item to purchase the streetlights. As we've discussed, we have to cover that in the capital line. We are looking into having that reimbursed through the lease program, but at the moment we have to cover that line item, but we may have that reimbursed. Youth and Family Services had sidewalk improvement project that was necessary. It was deemed an emergency by the selectmen to have them done. That's part of that 302. And the largest component is the IT infrastructure upgrade that we came through the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to appropriate the $141,000 to have that done. So all of that together is the $302,000 overage in capital.
You're saying 302.
302 is the amount that 302 is the amount we're transferring over. The bottom line might
Sorry,
not
sorry,
be
only because
that
I'm seeing
much. Sorry.
288. I'm trying to figure out where the 302 is.
Yeah.
Okay. So 302 is the transfer
The amount of
amount,
transfer,
288
I'm
is-
sorry, but it's made up primarily of that, yes. So there is
Okay.
some excess left over.
Okay, all right. All right, is there anything else in 1819?
And Park and Rec, what was that? Did you
In-
mention Park and Rec?
Under capital?
Yeah, under capital.
Park and Rec under capital, which line?
Building
item?
building maintenance. Is that what you're talking about? Well, there's a couple. There's vehicles.
Vehicles.
Yeah, that was budgeted.
That was trash removal.
Park and rec vehicles, 130, and it was under budget.
Right, actually,
this
it
point.
just came, you can talk about Park and Rec today, it just came to my attention just today from the Park and Rec director that we had $16,000 budgeted in the 18-19 year for the town's portion of the bus grant, and they did not purchase that bus in 18-19, so I will be requesting that money be carried in force into next year. So that makes up the difference in the funding. I think there's about 17,000 left, but
Yeah.
16 is the amount that's needed for the bus grant. But you'll see that at our September meeting, we'll be having some recommendations to transfer some of the surplus, and that'll be part of it, so that we can keep that money in force for them to purchase the bus in the current fiscal year.
Okay. Transfer within this, within 1819?
Correct.
So we'll,
1819 into fund balance.
yeah,
Carry in force for that 16,000.
okay. So it'll be designated for those particular
Designated
items?
specifically for that
Okay.
bus.
Yep,
Mhm.
got it, okay. Thank you. Anything else before I call?
So I guess a
Promotion.
question about the energy performance lease payment, right? Will we be trying to pursue that they guarantee that amount, since we don't feel like we saved it in electricity, or?
Well, the amount that we're over in that particular line is the purchase of the streetlights, and we estimate that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you
It's not-
explained that
it-
item.
right,
That's-
it's not the lease payment,
I'm
it's the
taking a
payment.
step back about
Correct.
the lease itself.
But just so you know, we do estimate, or Johnson Controls estimates, that we'll have a $50,000 a year savings due to that purchase of the streetlights and the change in the bulbs.
I think I'm talking about like the energy performance contract more broadly though, right?
Right.
So are we gonna pursue that they're gonna guarantee the payment for the lease because we didn't see the savings in electricity?
Yes. Yes, we-
Okay,
we-
but
we-
that's can't be determined until the study's done.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah,
At the moment, we have to cover
then we,
this,
then we
right.
can evaluate what worked and what didn't work.
Correct. We have seen some
And
savings.
fingers crossed, most of it.
Yeah.
As you may recall from the budget. The session, the town has already seen a significant reduction in its electric costs, and we actually budgeted for that. The pieces that were done for the town buildings, I think you may remember from the discussions during the workshops, we have already seen significant reduction in electrical stuff on the town side. Mind you, we're 1/5 of the cost, 20% of the total energy cost spent. The Board of Education has the lion's share of it.
Yeah, you'll see that the library itself had a significant amount of surplus this year, and that is almost all contributed to the energy performance contract. It's almost all utility savings.
So maybe we are not as far off as I think.
At least on the town side for this year, you're
Okay.
correct.
All right.
We haven't seen the results, as was spoken of earlier, but we are absolutely seeing the positive effects of the contract.
Is there any thought to, if I remember correctly, I think the engineering company that's gonna check to see if we're really achieving these savings, was that a 2-year
Yes, that's
arrangement?
EPC is responsible for I think we talked about this, they've procured the software. We've already started loading the old data into that software, the old electrical data, for both the town and the Board of Ed side. And that was part of the performance contract, was we got that software at no cost. Well, of course, there's cost for it. It's buried into the Johnson Control and EPC funds, but that as soon as we have all the measures completed, we'll be able to start comparing against.
I'm trying to recall, though, the measurement, was that only for 2 years, I think? They were gonna do the measurement as part of the lease that we entered into
No.
now and the payments we've made already?
it-
That
it-
measurement will continue for several
Continue
years?
through it. No, through the life of the contract.
Okay.
Performance guarantees, the energy guarantees are guaranteed for the life of the contract.
When they talk about the savings that we achieved, is it based on, so electric rates went up by quite a bit. Do they get the benefit of the fact that the rates went up by 20% on the supply side? If they reduce it by 10%, a 10% reduction due to, they get more, do they get extra credit, which I don't believe they should, because the rates went up? Is that factored into the way that it's calculated?
Cost-benefit analysis was, had an inflationary factor, I think 2.5% or 3% per year.
So anything in excess of that, they wouldn't get the credit for that? Okay.
Okay. I had the screen up here and I thought the revenue and expenses were it, and I realized we got to go through all the rest of it.
We got
So
a lot of stuff.
warrants, anyone? Warrants? I don't think I have anything on warrants.
Just had a question on the special fund.
Sure, go ahead.
There are 3 substantial invoices related to the water main extension at Mulberry Point,
Mhm.
and I wondered if this completes the special fund allocation.
Just
Uh,
started.
No, it's just the start of.
Just starting.
It's just the start of, construction has just begun for the water main project. And so that will go for.
Get used to seeing it.
It's an-
It's gonna be incremental
It's an
over.
anticipated 18-month project,
Yep.
so,
And the total amount?
6 years, close to 6 million altogether.
Yeah. So this is just the beginning, this 160?
Correct, it's just the start. That was the first payment to the to the contractor. Mhm.
I think it bears repeating that all the costs associated with this project will be borne by those 148 or 44 homeowners, whatever that, 145 homeowners in that area.
I thought the town was going to let them off the hook for a certain amount because of some overage.
No,
We talked about,
no, town is going to
no,
assess.
what am I thinking? No, there was something, and because it was going to cost more, maybe it was the interest on that extra money or something. There was some overage that wasn't anticipated that the town agreed to not charge them for.
No, no.
Mhm.
The ordinance is very clear.
No, I know, and I was surprised when we talked about it, and and it was, I'll look through my notes and find it.
I think
There's
the only
some-
thing we talked about was, we
not charging
we might be
interest
putting
on the
money,
money we're
we might be
putting up.
putting money out before we get the money back in. There might be that delta in interest rate. I know we talked about that a little bit, but every single dollar attributed to the Mulberry Point Water project
Is
is
going to
being
be-
attributed.
Is going to be paid
Correct.
back
It's
for
either
that.
gonna be
Okay, so
covered
there
by
is no
grants,
forgiveness
there is
on
no
that.
there's
So,
no forgiveness.
I think remember, she's right.
It's an interest thing?
It's the, we're not charging the interest on the money that we're fronting until such time as we get the revolving loan fund and we get the grant money from the state and we get the money from the Connecticut Water Company.
I think that we are not gonna get as much grant money as we originally anticipated.
That was one thing. We originally were anticipating 1.25. We got 450,000. However, we have a request in through the governor's office, Jonathan Harris, who's the liaison to the legislature, for 2.9 million, which closes the gap on the differential, the incremental change in the uptick in the cost of the project. So that's
If
a
that doesn't
request.
come through, then.
Well,
cost-
Regardless of where the money comes from, of how much grant we get, all of, whatever the delta is, the balance will be borne by the property owners. That's
Yeah.
the bond money.
Yeah, well, we're hoping the debt diet is not as restrictive.
But at the moment, I've actually received more funding through grants than I've paid out. So at the moment, we're to the good, but Connecticut Water has made their first half payment, which has more than covered our expenses at this time.
I had a question on a warrant. I don't know where, it was a $50,000 warrant for gray wall software, was it, or does that ring a bell? I didn't recognize it.
which one?
I don't know which one it was in. I just remember seeing it. It was what's that?
Is that who they are? What's a
I want to say
Gray Wolf or
gray
something?
wall.
Great, well, yeah. The fire department happens to be here.
Oh, was it a fire department?
Well,
item?
it's a town-wide software application, and Mike can talk to it
Right.
better
Mike
than I
manages
can.
it.
I could have sworn it was gray something.
Greywall software.
That is what I'm thinking, okay.
Yes.
That's the fire department, okay, so we can talk about that later.
It's not just the fire,
Everything, the
it's
whole town.
town-wide, but the fire department manages that particular software for us.
Is that a new thing, or have we had that every year?
It's been in existence for 5 years. We're building it out town-wide as of this year. Everyone in town will use it.
What is it?
It's all sorts of business operations software. So it's multifunctional. Primarily, we started using it for emergency management, bringing departments together so we can collectively communicate. But it's got a lot of business application or things that we can do in terms of digitalizing paper process. So the ability to digitalize those things. And we're actually getting ready to launch in September for town-wide for the actual other town departments. Police and fire have been using it for a little while. And then part of that is digitalizing
IT help ticket stuff, first reports of injury, PAFs.
Truck maintenance, vehicle
Yeah,
maintenance?
vehicle maintenance, all those stuff that used to
Manage all
be
of that.
paper process is, well, in the process of
So
digital.
is
Referred
it-
to as VOCI, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, VOC, the
So
software.
that's an
company.
annual fee, is that a purchase fee or an annual
It's a
licensing fee?
subscription.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, and by the way, Mike's the in-house expert on VOC software. He knows how to build it.
That's why we defer to him on.
Picked a good night to be here.
I think VOC calls him a development partner.
Good question, Ken, at the right time. We have the right people here.
Anything else on warrants? Medical?
What I provided to you tonight is just a update on the 18-19 year. I haven't had the opportunity to put the new year together, but you can see we have at the moment a projected $5 million surplus in the medical account. We've made some slight tweakings to some of the actual numbers for each month. But really, here just to show you the $5 million surplus is where we expect to be. The IBNR, the incurred but not released of $1.033 million. We'll be expecting to hear what our June 30, 19 number is very shortly. That normally comes mid to the end of August. So next month I'll be able to report what that is.
Do you anticipate the administrative costs going up?
Always.
And if so, has Segur, isn't that our consultant, HG Segur, did they give
Yes.
you an idea of the increase, percentage of
I
increase?
don't have that data with me. Do you have it?
Yeah.
I hate to give you numbers on that
Okay.
without that data. I know it's been a few months since we've reviewed all of that for the budget purposes, so I'm afraid I don't have those numbers
Okay.
off the top of my head, but you can always assume there
Oh, I
is
know.
at least a slight increase.
No, it was a big increase last year, I think.
Well, it was a
wasn't
big increase if you remember, if you remember, I spoke about, with the new reporting from Anthem, I'm able to more accurately pinpoint every item that is a fee as opposed to a claim, so that our claims went down and our fees went up, not because our fees really increased, but because we were more accurately able to pull those out. An example of that is, a lot of the providers bill as part of claims, also their administrative costs. So we were seeing claims, which we were posting as claims, but embedded in there were some administrative costs. And now with the advanced reporting from Anthem, we're able to pull those out. So not really looking apples to oranges, unfortunately, last year to this year. So it looks like a huge amount, but it's not as large as it looks, because last year some of those fees would have been embedded in claims.
Okay, it was about a 14% increase in administrative costs, fiscal year 18 over 19.
On the ISL, just wanted to, in May, it was 1,422,000, which was reflected in the covered by below. I'm just wondering.
Oh, you know what, I didn't pull that down. My error, you're absolutely correct.
Which the only reason I'm bringing it up is.
You're absolutely
it means
correct, I see it right now.
We realize further savings.
I missed that as further
Right.
savings, I apologize.
So it's
Yes.
not 93, it's more, it's a much bigger number.
Right,
that
it's
we-
almost
that we saved based
200,000
on the
more than that.
premium.
I apologize, I will fix that.
No,
Yep.
I just want to make sure
Nope.
that we saved more.
Mm-hmm,
Okay. All right.
good catch, thank you.
Anything else on medical? And then we got the capital reports. Thank you for the capital reports. I was going through all these numbers as I typically try to. Is there anything that came off of these capital reports? Any bonds?
No, the bonds that
Capital
we
projects.
are taking off this fiscal year are some of the very old bonds that were in our original Fund 214, which we no longer report on. Those are the ones that we closed out with the taxable bonds. All of those will be coming off very shortly. As soon as we get over this hump of all of our year-end stuff, we'll be doing that. And then after that, I hope to roll off bonds on a yearly basis. But I'm taking care of the real old ones that haven't been done for some time first.
The first two on the school capital don't seem to have much left in terms of balances.
Right. Many of
again,
the projects are done, so we're no longer...
So those are probably going to be rolling off.
Correct. I've already confirmed with Cliff at the school which of the projects are closed out, but we're just waiting to do them in a more systematic manner. But it would be my plan moving forward to continually roll off bonds as we're adding on new ones.
By rolling off, you mean we're closing the
Closing them
bond
out.
authorizations?
Correct.
Okay.
Closing the authorizations. That is done through a resolution by the Board of Selectmen.
Basically saying that there's no more work to do and, you know.
Correct.
which is-
Closing out
yeah.
either covering any under budgeting, underfunded, or moving some additional surplus from that particular bond into another bond authorization, so that it stays within the bonding structure. It just would move to the next one, but it would be closed out to zero.
And that will go for the town as well. So
Correct.
There's a couple.
Both sides.
Yeah, 11, 12, 12, 13s.
Exactly right.
Okay. All right. Anything else on capital? Before we move on to another fiscal year? Okay. All right, for 18-19, I want to entertain a motion to approve the report of expenditures of the town for the month of July 2019 for fiscal year 18-19 in the amount of $193,307.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? Okay. On to fiscal year 1920. Looking at basically approving warrants. We have warrants. That's all we got.
Right, we're looking for your approval on the warrants. Next month, we will report on a combined July,
Right.
August.
Right. Is there anything on warrants? Special, regular, weekly?
Saw an American Airlines ticket in
I leave tomorrow. Just kidding.
What would that be for? Which, what was it on?
there. Huh?
What was it on? Was it right?
It's on.
Trip to DC for? I would have to assume it's a conference of some sort.
There's conference, there are two
Yeah.
conferences.
Right.
One,
I wasn't asking
Yeah.
for,
Well, it gets raised, and I can tell you that there's someone in the public going, who's going on a trip? Just gotta get it out of the way.
First
So-
of which was in the Eisenhower Office Building. It was on a Tuesday at the invite of the current administration, Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, where we received a series of briefings. In particular, of particular interest was the one on infrastructure. And I've made a contact at EPA because there's alleged to be some additional grant money available for water projects. So that was primary purpose to go there. I was able to dovetail that with a forum that Senators Blumenthal and Murphy put on the subsequent 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. And so the expense for the airplane was that. However, I saved the taxpayers some money because I stayed at my daughter's apartment downtown DC and had the opportunity to spend some time with her during the evening. But
Way to parlay that. That's well done.
you got to take advantage of what you can.
Yes, you did. Anything else on the warrants? All right. For fiscal year 1920, entertain a motion to approve the report of expenditures of the town for the month of July 2019 for fiscal year 1920 in the amount of $4,212,132.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Recusals? Okay. Item number 6, Mary Jane, don't go anywhere, just in case. So what we have for item 6 is discuss and take possible action on end of the year transfers to close out fiscal year 18-19, which we were just alluding to. Basically now, there's a memo we also received, right, that indicates that this morning, the Board of Selectmen took the following action. There's 3 bullets here, but I saw the 852 number. Voted unanimously to transfer $852,352 in operating budget transfers as directed by the Finance Director in her memo and recommended to the Board of Finance. So we have quite a few transfers to from departments. I would rather not go through all of these and these amounts, but we have them in front of us. As I just read, the total amount is $852,352 that is being transferred from multiple departments.
I'll just add that most of these items are things we've discussed over the last
There-
couple of months or so.
There are, when I was looking through these, there were no surprises here that I
Shouldn't
saw.
be any
We've been
surprises.
talking about them.
No.
Where there were some shortfalls and where there was some remaining funds. So with that, I think,
I'll make the motion.
Motion to
Authorize the transfers.
transfer, okay? Do
In
we
the
have a
amount
second?
of $852,352.
Excellent.
Second.
Second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great, thank you. The other 2 bullets here, are we taking care of these under this as well?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Keep going.
Keep going, keep swimming. The Board of Selectmen this morning voted unanimously to transfer $341,441 to debt retirement interest from 2 fund balance accounts as outlined by the Finance Director and recommended to the Board of Finance. So,
Again, those are our premium credits that we've budgeted through the process.
right, which we alluded to also before. Okay,
We discussed that before.
all right. Entertain a motion to transfer the $341,441 to debt retirement interest from the 2 fund balance accounts?
So,
Second, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the third bullet, Board of Selectmen took the action of voting unanimously to transfer $223,000 from employee benefits to assigned fund balance reserve for personnel and committee fund balance sick leave retirement as outlined by the Finance Director and recommended to the Board of Finance. This is basically just a transfer to the
Yeah, I will.
negotiated
I'll
contract.
comment on this. We had 2 line items in the employee benefits line that we put in place for contract negotiations and possible retirements. We did not utilize all of the funds, so it is my recommendation to put those into fund balance in the committed funds where we have those line items so that in subsequent years, we don't need to budget as much. Because what we do is we estimate what we might need in those particular line items year over year. We take that gross amount, we subtract what we have set aside, and we budget that net. So the more we are able to put into those committed fund balances, the less we need to budget for in subsequent years. So it's my recommendation, since that money was available and unspent, to move in that fashion.
And that will be shown clearly in the audit.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. All right. Motion to transfer the 223 from employee benefits to assigned fund balance reserve for personnel and committee fund balance sick leave retirement.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. I think that'll do it. Now you can go. Thanks, Mary Jane. Oh, right, you might have to come, well, committee reports, number 7. Building permits. This is basically starting to reflect the new year. Veronica, anything to
No.
update? Okay. Item number 8, old business, OPEB trust update. Oh, I should have stayed up here, huh? This is, I will preface this by the fact that we've been talking about establishing this or putting money into a trust. And both, right? A little bit of both. And last month, I know I did raise it during new business, I believe, maybe it was even old business. So you were going to come back to us and tell us, I guess you were meeting with the
I've had lots of
consultant.
meetings and I've done
Good.
lots of work since then.
Good,
So,
thank you.
On August 7th, I met with our actuaries to solidify the actions as outlined in that letter from Shipman and Goodwin. If you remember, I forwarded the letter a few months ago. So we just, went through those action items. We are finalizing a draft of the investment policy statement. Our consultants, FIA, have worked on that, and it's actually on the pension committee's agenda Wednesday, just as a first read at this point, just for them to get that moving along. The draft OPEB trust agreement, which will look very similar to our current pension trust agreement, has already been drafted by Shipman and Goodwin, our lawyers. I received that just this morning, along with draft ordinances related to the trust agreement, which will amend our current ordinances for the pension and the pension committee, since our plan is to have both the OPEB trust and the pension trust managed by our pension committee. All of that will just be rewritten to include all of that. I'm also working and met with, like I said, our actuaries, and we're looking to determine the baseline results in order to model our funding going forward. Currently, we are funding our OPEB. It's part of our medical plan. The OPEB expenses for the town are paid through the medical plan. So we're looking to, that's our normal cost, we're looking to work our way up to the ADC for the OPEB. We plan to do that hopefully in steps over a number of years. We're working on that so that we don't go from 0 to $1 million in 1 year, or whatever that number might be, so that each year we put a little bit more as we go along. So we're working with our actuaries to come up with that recommendation. So the resolutions that Shipman and Goodwin are putting together will be approved by the Board of Selectmen, and the ordinance will be approved by the Board of Selectmen, sent to public hearing, and finally approved at town meeting. So we are working on all of that paperwork. We have some questions to answer related to how all of us will work together on this, specifically with the Board of Education, and whether or not they will play a role in this. After tonight's meeting, moving forward, I'm looking to hold quite a large meeting, but putting everybody at the table so everybody knows what they're doing and it's not just me, coming forward. We'll be inviting the Board of Finance Chair, our first selectman, the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education Chair, our Human Resources Director, in-house counsel, our business manager, our Board of Ed Benefits Coordinator, our consultants, our actuaries, and myself, and our attorneys, who will actually facilitate that meeting so that everybody understands the process, the roles that everyone will play, and to actually determine the role that the Board of Education may or may not have in this trust, because it can be done either way, with just the town or with the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed does not specifically pay towards OPEB. They have what GASB calls an implicit subsidy. As the cost for healthcare goes up, that delta is part of our liability that we see in the financial statements. So the Board of Ed may choose not to have a role in this, and that's what we're hoping to determine. So that will be the main goal of that, and just to make sure everybody's on the same page and moving forward as one group. We're not in a hurry to get this through. It's not something we have to do, but our timetable shows that we could have this in place by the first of the year. So.
You answered one question I had. Will this, when they go through the analysis, will there also be, you said, rather than go 0 to $1 million, right? Is there going to be a recommended amount that is, per year?
Right.
Or
Well, we already have, as part of our financial statements, a recommended amount. Clearly, we're not meeting that, because we don't have a trust. But our actuaries will start with that figure and provide us a step
up of what we would,
correct,
to get to a certain point.
My goal, and again, it's just my goal, and that's why I'm putting all these people together, my goal is to increase that trust to a point where it is self-sufficient and it can start then covering a portion of the expense. If we put money into the trust and immediately start taking it out, we're not making any headway.
Mm-hmm.
So the actuaries will help us determine what points that we can, start doing that. We'll be relying on them for that information.
The challenge is in the near term, because we have to continue to fund our current employees and in order to build the OPEB trust fund, we've got to add additional monies over and above what we pay out to our current employees who are on those benefits. So that's the challenge. That's why last year we asked that you utilize some of the excess in the medical expense to start to fund the OPEB account. We're going to be asking for the same consideration this year, particularly since we just turned in a surplus of $1.2 million. So if we get opportunities like that to fund it outside of the normal budgetary process, that's all to the good. However, we are more than likely going to need to start to look at funding it through the budgetary process as well.
Right. That's the step process, so that we work our budget up instead
Right.
of.
Some out of the budget and some based on basically just a reallocation.
Correct, especially with $5 million in our medical fund at the moment.
All right. Okay.
So that's where I stand. Again, you'll be invited to attend that meeting.
Okay.
Anybody could come, but it's going to be a challenge to get all these people in the same room at the same time, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Well, I mean, as typical, when I get word, then I could share it with the board, and if people are available, great.
Absolutely.
Anyone's
welcome to come.
welcome, so.
Mhm.
Okay. Great. Thank you for all the research.
Welcome.
Great.
Thank you for allowing me to move forward with it. I think it's important.
Very welcome. I don't see anything else under old business. Does anybody have anything to add, old business? If not, I do have one item under new business that I promised a group of people I would talk about on Friday. So our first selectman is here also, and I know a member of the fire department's here and representatives, and we had Captain Considine with us. There was a 4-hour workshop that was hosted by Sustainable Guilford on Friday morning. It was about 4 hours. Went into the afternoon, but it was regarding community resilience and hazard mitigation. And I'm bringing this up more for the colleagues and for the people at home. This was led by the Nature Conservatory, and it was in coordination with Sustainable Connecticut. I would say there were probably about 10 to 12 representatives. It was a pretty diverse group of people from boards, commissions, foundations. I'm sure the list will be someplace of all the people that attended. Yeah, it was a good mix. And really, the topics that were covered dealt with community issues that had to do with resiliency and hazard mitigation, as I mentioned, in terms of infrastructure of the town, societal issues, and environmental concerns. It was, I think, more or less of a SWOT analysis. It was what our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. And right at the end, after we met it was pretty intense. I mean, for a good 4 to 5 hours, the facilitator, I think his name Adam, right? Yeah. Said, what did you learn out of this? And I think the majority of all of us that attended said, we didn't really realize how well prepared this town is. I mean, there are communities that, resiliency and hazard mitigation, we have a hazard mitigation committee. A lot of towns don't even have that. And I give kudos to Captain Considine, who was there. And he had a lot to share about the fire department and police and emergency services and how prepared we are, but even all the way to levels of, and we have facility task forces. We have, how many, 40-something committees?
There are 43 boards, commissions, task force, and general committees in town, all staffed by, with the exception of Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, all financed by volunteers, all manned by volunteers.
Yeah, I think we were all very impressed with the comments that came out of that. And I wanted to make sure I shared it. The one thing I said is, I really wish it was taped. Michael, it didn't have to be you. But the conversation that went on was really, really powerful about this town and about how well prepared we are. I think the biggest issue is not necessarily how we are today, but what's coming 10, 20, 50 years down the road, which none of us really know. So I think we're more on a proactive path than a reactive path. And it has a lot to say with the way this town and the volunteers and the staff and department heads and schools and everybody are really, working collaboratively. So I wanted to make sure I shared that because it was a very powerful workshop. And Matt, I don't know if you have anything to share.
I agree with you. Your point was very well taken. One of the lines, I can't remember who said it, but we're good today, but what about tomorrow? And particularly being a coastal town, coastal resilience is going to continue to be a challenge for us. There are neighborhoods, there are areas of town that are potentially in danger of being isolated from the balance of the community over the next 20, 50 years. To that end, one of the things that we've done, we've worked with the Council of Governments. We currently have a Route 146 corridor study. There are 5 or 6 points along 146 between Guilford and Branford that are starting to become almost impossible on a full moon tide. They're flooding. So those are the kind of things we need to look at. Several years ago, Guilford did the coastal resilience planning document. We implemented, I think, 3 major projects out of that series of recommendations. But we're going to need to continue to pay attention to those kind of things. And quite honestly, at some point, there's going to need to be continued investment in our infrastructure. And then, some of the things we talk about is, do we continue to put millions of dollars worth, or keep millions of dollars of equipment down in a floodplain, which is where our public works facility is. So these are all the things that we're talking about in terms of resiliency and long-term planning. So I agree with you, Mike. It was a great workshop.
Yeah, it was I was thrilled to be invited to it, so it was good. I wanted to share that with all of you. I think the report is expected back in September. Did they say September, they'll have a report, and I'm sure that'll go to the Board of Selectmen, or actually that'll go to Sustainable Guilford, and then they'll share it with the Board of Selectmen. I'm sure it'll be open for the community to look at as well. So, anything else under new business? Anybody? Okay. Item 10, public forum. Anybody? Going once, twice? Otherwise, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.